Welcome to the second annual SGA Post-Debate Analysis Show. I'm your host, Brianna Albizu, and I'm joined by my wonderful correspondents. Cole Gibson is a familiar face as a returning correspondent from last year's debate. You may have also recognized him as the host for Primetime Esports. To Cole's left, we have Michaela Newton, a reporter for Panther Report and a new face to the show. With that being said, I want to thank you both for being with me this evening.
Thank you for having us.
It's good to be back.
So let's get started with some background. Last night, The Signal hosted the first round of SGA debates for the 2017 year. The schedule consisted of the Speaker of the Senate debate at 5 p.m., the Executive Vice Presidential debate at 6 p.m., and the Presidential debate at 7 p.m. For time's sake, we will only be focusing on the Vice Presidential and Presidential debates. So, getting started, what was your take on the overall debate, Michaela?
Well, I think that SGA and the host, The Signal, really did a great job with moderating and also addressing the current issues at Georgia State. However, there was a lack of attendance at this year's debates in comparison with last year's debate. So I think that that was a really big issue this year.
I agree. I think student awareness for the debates was really lacking this year. And I feel, just speaking on the candidates a little bit, that a lot of them, even the ones that are Atlanta-based candidates, seem to not be really informed on how the role of their job worked and as far as the power goes. But overall, I think it's a better running and a better competition than it was last year, definitely.
Okay, that's good. So we're going to first start with the Executive Vice Presidential debates. So we have the candidates up right here. So let's see. Here we are. We have Gabriel Ty, from left to right, we have Gabriel Ty Keecher, also known as Ty Keecher, Jesse Calixt, Usama Lakhani, and Jan Mondon. So, also including Executive Vice Presidential candidates Frederick Severson and Christian Smith, who did not respond by press time and were also not at the debate. Jesse and Usama. Jesse represents the Dunwoody campus, so I'm not sure why he wasn't there, but Usama, apparently after speaking with one of the moderators, was in an accident, so he couldn't be there. So it was honestly just Ty and Jan debating. I thought that was very interesting with the candidates missing, especially even for the Speaker of the Senate. It was just him when there were supposed to be two other, him and another person. So I feel like I saw this trend a lot tonight or yesterday, and I felt that it was very interesting. So what do you think about these missing candidates? Do you think it could hurt, their platform, or what can it do?
I feel that it's hard to say because there's no real consequence for actually missing a debate. And exposure, maybe, but there wasn't that many people in attendance like we said. So it's hard to say it will hurt them, but there's still no excuse as to why. And this goes on to, the trust issues and the lack of student government association kind of taking these things seriously. The one that was in the accident, you said Usama.
Yes.
That is unfortunate. You can't really control that situation. But as far as the Dunwoody candidate, there's no excuse for him to miss this debate without, reasons like, oh, maybe a family emergency or sick, but otherwise, like, why are you not here?
Yeah, I definitely think that it would definitely hurt their campaign. There was a lack of attendance from the audience as well as the candidates, and I think that that's an issue because you signed on to do this role and to be a part of this debate because you want to run for a position. So I think that that'll definitely hurt them.
Absolutely. So we're first going to start with the Executive Vice President, Ty Keecher. We have his profile up here right now. And this is kind of showing the platform, his plans, and his position. So obviously you can see platform is big on engagement. He also said that last year less than 5% of the student body at Georgia State voted in the SGA elections. So he thinks that getting more people to vote in these elections and to work with SGA would be very beneficial. He also has plans for a student life app and just SGA collaborating with other organizations. So what do you think about his platform and plans?
Well, I think Ty was a very good presenter as far as the debate goes. However, his platform was kind of geared towards engagement and only getting more students involved with SGA. And I think that there's so many other issues as far as what goes on Georgia State's campus that need to be addressed. but his main goal was engagement and getting other student organizations, as far as SGA goes, into in more student engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was definitely very brash, but he was also very truthful about the 5% thing. And he also went on to say that the last meeting he attended for SGA, only half the senators showed up. He sounded like he was very no-nonsense. He was really pushing for policies that would force SGA members to fulfill their commitments as well, but he also didn't really give any plans as to how he would implement the change. He seemed like a very hands-on person, get out there, talk to people, get to know them, take phone calls, but outside of that and the Student Life app, he didn't even really have a plan for that as well. So I think that was what was really lacking from his message.
I definitely agree. I think Ty was very brash, but also very honest. I saw some of the quotes he said. SGA was not connecting with the students, that the students don't participate, and that half the senators weren't there at the previous meeting that they had. So I think he was definitely very honest with it. Him being a commuter student, is that helping him? Because I think over like 90% of students at Georgia State, at least the Atlanta campus, are commuters. So
I feel like as a commuter student, I can kind of connect with his message, and it has its advantage and disadvantage. As you can reach a broader base of students, like a lot of grad students are commuter students, and there are other undergrad students that are commuters that don't really get reached by SGA. But at the same time, it does take him out of the loop more often than not as far as real issues going on around. Like, there are even things that sometimes I don't know what's going on. I know that's a burden on his candidacy, because there are some things, like I believe that he wanted to implement a rule that would require SGA senators to not only attend meetings, but like go out and meet constituents for an extra 5 hours. And he was met by Ms. Muhammad, one of the moderators, by saying, well, they're already required to do that, and on top of that, you can't put that much burden on them again as well. So that's another instance where he's uninformed because he does not stay here 24/7.
Yeah, I think that him being a commuter could be a positive thing, but it also can be very negative. One of the reoccurring themes during this debate was bridging the gap between the students and SGA, or the students and administration. But I think if he would hold his word as to coming to the campus and talking to the students, then that can definitely work in his favor.
absolutely. So, okay, definitely. So now we're going to go to Executive Vice President Jan Munden. We also have his profile here, as long as with his platform, his plans, and his position. Platform, obviously, to bridge a gap between students and administration, similar to Ty's. Plans, rebuild the trust of students, which I thought was very interesting, considering a lot of them, not in the vice presidential, but also the presidential debate, they were talking about trust and how, SGA was lacking that from the student body. So, what are your thoughts on his platform and his plans? They're similar to Ty's, but how do you think they could be different?
Well, I think him and Ty definitely kind of butt heads in their platforms, because Ty was more of SGA has a lot more work to do, whereas Jan had a lot more to say about what SGA is doing well currently. And I think that, definitely bridging the gap, like I stated earlier, is a huge problem with SGA currently. And maybe that's one of his best parts of his platform, is that he really wants to bridge that gap between the students and SGA and the administration.
Right, as you said, there's trust issues. A lot of students are now disenfranchised with the way things with the current administration are going, the sort of controversies and how the students do not feel that their voice is heard. They just don't show up because they feel like it doesn't matter anyways. And we see some parallels, the presidential elections for the U.S. in the SGA debate. But Jan, overall, he had good presentation, but I do agree with Michaela. I don't like that he was more of an establishment candidate, more status quo. He didn't really recognize the issues that are going on. It was almost like he glossed over them, like he ignored the fact that there were those issues. He brought up as far as trust, but there are other things that he could have talked about that he just didn't address.
Absolutely. And aside from Ty being very honest and hardcore and brash, as you said, I feel like Jan was very optimistic. He says there has been much more involvement in SGA compared to the previous administration. But actually, one of the moderators, Christina, was very quick to kind of get on him for that. And she says, actually, in the past, and I think this relates to the CBA, the Coalition Benefits Agreement sort of deal in Turner Field, senators did not promise students concerns, and they were kind of reluctant to listen to them. So what do you think about that?
I think the big question here, as far as the optimism, is do students want optimism or do they want realism? right now. And I think a lot more students want realism, whether it's the CBA or campus safety. I think that they haven't handled things with the CBA as well as they could have. They didn't handle things well with the student getting escorted out of, or we can put it bluntly, getting arrested and led out of the SGA meeting. And optimism is not the course that needs to be taken, especially during an election like this.
I admire Jan's positivity during his presentation. However, there are so many different problems going on at Georgia State with CBA, Turner Field developments, the DACA students, or just a lot of issues, the gender-neutral bathrooms, campus safety, all these things are really big issues. And although I do admire his positivity, I feel like those need to be addressed. And however, also Ty, he didn't also address that either. Like, he kind of just focused on engagement with students and not what the actual issue is. So both of the candidates didn't bring up those issues. I feel like SGA and the moderators had to do that for them.
And I agree. I think that in this situation, neither of them, like you said, really addressed the issue. But I believe, as far as personality-wise, I think Ty is better equipped to deal with it from a realistic standpoint, while Jan, he threatens to sort of bring the same year-round tenure that has been here of, oh, nothing's going on, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and that's not what anybody wants right now.
Absolutely. And some of the responses to the questions for the executive vice president included bridging a gap between SGA and the student body, open channels with other campuses, graduate students' involvement, and perimeter students feeling left out. So I definitely think that one that really stood out, and also campus safety, which is probably the one I was going to talk about. Campus safety was a really big, issue going on. It has been in the past, so I think that was a big question that was answered. And so, yeah, what do you think their, responses were to that?
You want to take it first?
Sure. Well, I don't really remember them speaking about the campus safety, Jan and both and Gabriel. But I think that should have been brought up.
Absolutely.
Like, if you want to be vice president, you have to talk about the issues, and that's what they were lacking during this debate.
Yeah, like we said, a lot of them lacked issues. I remember Jan did talk about taking baby steps with graduate students, while I remember Ty, it was just more hands-on. Hey, I'm going to go out and talk to people. I'm going to go out and meet them, take phone calls and stuff like that. The only real plan that seemed to be put up for this is Jan said he wanted to send liaisons to other campuses to get their opinion, which kind of complicates things. We're already in a complicated state with the consolidation where there's a whole bunch of bureaucracy that we still don't understand right now. Why complicate that? And then with Ty, he wanted to create an app for student life, but then how are you going to do that? Where's the money going to come from? And he said the Panther hackers would make it, but they're also full-time students. You can't really commission them to a full-time project that probably needs to be paid as students and not expect some lag in the project.
Right. I kind of want to add to that. A lot of the candidates missed the how. They had all these great plans about what they were going to do, but they missed the how they were going to get it done. So I think that's a negative.
Absolutely. And we also we're going to go to the presidential debate right now. So our candidates, as you can see here, again, from left to right, we have Corey Gray, Breonna Stanley, and Anthony Wynn. So we're going to first start with Corey Gray's profile, talk about him, the front runner, as we would say. So his platform was a little wordy. It was together, which, as I can say, goes for transform and explore avenues to increase student services, more dining and parking options, convenient resources for the transfer, guarantee transparent leadership, endorsing promotion of academic programs, stigma of mental health illnesses, halt on sexual assault, participating in campus-wide programs, and more services to commuter students. So his plans were addressing issues of transparency and togetherness, which I think was a big thing for him. He's held many positions, including the SGA senator, and he was a former resident assistant, just to name some of the few. But what was your overall impression on him? Because he definitely, out of all the candidates, had a very strong presence.
Yeah. I definitely think that Corey did a great job with his presentation. He was a standout candidate. And he's a standout student on campus as well. But one of his main issues was to trump mental illness. And I think that that goes a long way. It's very important on campus, and that's kind of the things that we don't really look at when we talk about everyday life. But I do think that maybe that's not as good as we think it is, because one of the things that he talked about that he deals with is stress. So if he were to take or become the vice president, or president, excuse me, would stress be a factor, and would he be able to handle it in a certain manner?
Yeah, he was probably the closest thing to the perfect candidate we've had in the last couple debates. He was very concise with his answers, very confident. He just oozed confidence out of himself, and he was very persistent. He pushed transparency and inclusion with students, and yet he pushed mental health, which is something that is kind of neglected and people don't really talk about a lot, and I think a lot of students in the crowd admired that. But at the same time, he also fell into the same syndrome of he didn't really have any plans to go along with what he wanted to do. His plan was that, hey, we don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. But at least I'm putting it out there. At least I'm the candidate putting it out there and putting it on the platform to be talked about. But in that same time, his confidence kind of overshadowed that. I feel the crowd sort of just glazed over. He didn't have a plan because he was so confident in how he was saying it.
Absolutely. And I feel like, and I also, when I was researching, I saw that Corey and Anthony both ran for executive vice president in the 2016 debate, which I thought was very interesting. So it definitely, in the debates yesterday showed that they did have this confidence, about how they were debating and stuff like that. So I think he was definitely one of the stronger suits. We're going to go on to Breonna Stanley and her profile, her platform, campus involvement, new technology, especially with perimeter campuses, and availability of classes. So our plans include bridging a gap between the Atlanta perimeter campuses, and of course, an interesting position, she is the only perimeter student. So do you feel like that sort of helps her in a way? What do you think her overall impression was on the Atlanta student body?
I feel like it definitely showed us how difficult it can be being it's not just a commuter where at least you're coming into the Atlanta campus, but just being away from the current events of the Atlanta-based campus, being away from the important issues happening and not understanding how things work on the campus, how hard it can be for someone like her to run, for someone from perimeter to run for this position. She was very shaky on a lot of the answers that had to deal with current events on the Atlanta-based campus, very shaky on some of the procedures and programs we have here, and it's made her job even harder than it already was, fighting against two former senators running for this position that have been here for a long time. And while she was executive vice president on perimeter, it's completely different from being in a position on SGA in Atlanta.
I agree. I think that although she does have experience with an SGA position, she definitely has a more biased platform in that she would help the other campuses rather than helping Atlanta campus in general, but Georgia State as a whole. I think it would kind of, if she became our president, it would be geared more towards her campus, and I think that it would be very difficult for her to commute and to get all the campuses together, seeing as though she is at a Decatur campus.
Do you think that's what the Atlanta student body is worried about, that she will commit more to her perimeter and she won't be there as much for, the Atlanta campus?
I feel like it's not even just for the Atlanta campus. I feel like it's for the other satellite campuses around, like Clarkston and in other areas. Like, perimeter is not just the only satellite campus. Of course, it's one of the bigger ones. It's one of the newer ones especially, but it's not the only one. And I feel that bias could harm her because bringing that sort of small mentality around, hey, I have my campus I have to worry about. We have these problems. I'm the small guy bringing it to the big guys in Atlanta. But you also have to represent all the other small guys and the Atlanta-based campus and hear out over 50,000 students, complaints and worries. And if there's any worries that the people voting do have, it is that maybe she's not fit for this job because she hasn't been in Atlanta, which is the biggest campus, and dealt with the struggles around here.
Yeah. I think that she's not as aware of what's going on at downtown campus or any of the other campuses as she is her own campus, and that's a really big issue because you have to know what's going on throughout all 6 campuses, so that's an issue.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the students here's concerns is definitely what her stance is on that. We're going to go to Anthony Wynn, his profile. His platform, again, another acronym, is FORWARD. So firing up school spirit by increasing perimeter participation, academic advisement and financial aid efficiency, revitalize the student administration relationship, sustainability efforts, campus safety concerns, advocating against discriminatory policies, and more multicultural organizations. So, and I know especially a big thing for him was on the sustainability, and he also talked about, the major lines that go on every semester for financial aid, and then, the basic, anger about, advisors in the academic office. So what do you think, what were your impressions, and what do you think some of the weaknesses, strengths he had for his platform?
I really liked Anthony's platform. It was really detailed. He had a lot more, a better plan than I feel the other candidates, and he actually had proof of his progress even before he might be elected as a president. So he had his documents prepared, and he actually had a plan as to what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. However, I did think that his presence lacked his actual platform. So his presence during the debate was a little bit more quiet and a little bit more unsure. But his platform was very detailed and very concrete as to what he was trying to get done.
Yeah, he probably had the best platform that we've seen out of all the candidates. And for instance, I liked his rolling advisor initiative, where he wanted to have an advisor throughout all the years that you're here instead of having it switch, because that does help, having someone that not only understands your career goals but is there with you throughout the entire way. And I like that he understood the frustration that we as students have with financial aid. I think I'm disenchanted with sort of the plan versus the reality. Financial aid, it's no small task to clear that up. There's a lot of logistics going into it, money for hiring the new financial aid officers that you want to bring in to unclog things, money that you have to do to rent out spaces for them to use and things like that. And at the same time, rolling advisors. That means that each advisor, with how many advisors we have now, let's say, for instance, has to take on about 50 different students where they have to keep up with them throughout an entire college career. And that's extremely hard in a city-based campus, on a big campus like Georgia State. But I like his ideas, and to your point, he did seem a little quiet and unsure. It was almost like he warmed up, but it wasn't until till they got to the targeted questions they started to shine, because those were more directed at him and not just the general panel.
I thought it was also very interesting, and it was kind of a lighter tone when he talked about, the multicultural organizations and how there's a lack of an Asian American office. He mentioned that there's a Black Student Achievement, that there's an office for Latino students to go to, but an Asian American. And, I thought that was very interesting, and, that was very personal that he shared that. And, yeah, I don't know where it could go from that, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, he did mention these different offices for other diverse students, and I didn't even know that we didn't have an Asian organization. But I think Georgia State, being one of the most innovative and diverse schools, that we definitely should cater to all the other races and ethnicities. And the fact that he pointed that out was very, personal to him, and I think that that's something that was one of the good things about his platform.
He not only pointed out, he also pointed out that we don't have an Arab minority center for, and that's another big thing about his platform, is just he preached diversity and inclusion, including everybody, and not even just students, but also the community. And I want to save my points when we start talking about the CBA, obviously, but that was just a big part of his platform that I liked, was just the inclusion of the surrounding area and not just of students at Georgia State.
Also, he brought up campus safety, and one of the things that I noticed and that I really liked his idea was having an escort outside of the Atlanta campus. So a lot of the times when students might be by 112 or by any other off-campus dorms, they want to feel safe and they want an escort. But a lot of the times when you call Georgia State Police, you can't have those escorts because they're off of campus. So I really like that idea of him having that escort service, and then also having the police officers within a certain range of each other. I think that that's very good in implementing.
Absolutely. And besides the campus safety, they also talked about a number of issues, including Asma El-Houni, how she was taken out or arrested, as some people would say, of the SGA, one of the SGA meetings. personal goals as their president, the campus carry bill, the CBA in Turner Field, and of course the spring 2017 commencement, which I think is a big deal considering we can't, we got to think about not just the people graduating spring 2017, but also people, eventually for fall 2017 and spring 2018. Where are they going to graduate? So I thought it was very interesting. They started with Asma El-Houni, which, was a big deal, of course, and we actually have a clip of when that happened, the next meeting when they talked about it. Corey Gray was apologizing personally of what happened to her and what they can do to, step forward. Let's take a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to first address Asma. I want to say from the bottom of my heart that I am sincerely saddened and I apologize that you got taken out of me because no one has addressed that. So I want to address you personally and say my mother was domestically abused, so I've seen that before, and that makes my heart cry. So I apologize for that. Moving forward, I stand with our senators here today who are standing up, and we are here to hear your voices. What I can say is that the only interaction I've had with you all has been in these meetings where I haven't been able to hear all the facts. So I want to sit down with you, and I want to hear what you all have to say. And I want to sit at that table. So if you allow me the opportunity and allow us the opportunity, we can really do that. But you have to allow us that opportunity. Because all we hear is this yelling and stuff, and it's not, I can't pick up on that. But we sit down and we really talk and explore those options, we really can. So my name is Senator Gray, Corey Gray. I will sit down with you and we can talk about it. I promise you that. Okay.
So I thought that was very great that we had that clip to show his personal, response to that. And because he also mentioned it at the debate. He was like, look, I did personally, say that I'm sorry for what, for SGA about what happened. And so as soon as he said that, we brought up the clip, and he in fact did say that. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that Asma and the Turner Field Coalition's issue was definitely one of the biggest issues that Georgia State has probably faced in a very long time. So for him to step up that way and apologize for SGA, I think that was very big of him, and that kind of showed his leadership with SGA, although he's not president. So, but another thing that Anthony mentioned was that he's a personal friend of Asma's and also has been working with the Turner Field Coalition. But I like that he took his stance and he stood up and apologized for their actions.
Yeah, it's great that Anthony knows her as a personal friend. He was also offended and then went out. But for Senator Gray to openly stand up and say, hey, we were wrong, I'm sorry for this, it's going to gain him some big points with the voters because, and I know he cares, not that he just looks like he cares, we know that he cares about this issue and that he would have handled it differently. He even said that he would have handled it differently, and that he cares about that young woman's safety and about how SGA is perceived to the student body.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like, we talk about Anthony and Corey, but also Brianna, I think was a very weak point for her because she wasn't there when that happened because, she was on a perimeter campus, which, of course we understand, but her not being there, not really understanding the situation as much as Anthony and Corey, I feel like was definitely a weak spot for her.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you could just tell by the way she answered, and she tried her best, and while you do need to be informed in what she did say that she was like, I did hear about that, it's hard to share the same emotional response when you're not able to be there, and you could tell she was kind of hesitant in the way she was answering because she didn't have enough context to give a good answer for it. So I commend her for her effort to try and answer, but that's just another challenge that she has to face being someone from another off campus.
Definitely, I agree, and I do think that that was definitely a weak point for her. And she also, I noticed that kind of had had the same answers with the same question or different questions. So It was kind of a routine type of situation for her because it does give her a disadvantage of what's on our campus,
Absolutely. Now, thankfully, we got to have post-debate interviews with each of the candidates, of the presidential candidates, so Corey, Anthony, and Brianna. So first, we're going to start with Corey. We asked him who was his biggest competitor, and surprising enough, I think the video speaks for itself, but see if you can guess who it was.
Biggest competitor so far is myself.
and that's because I have to continue to motivate myself to continue doing this. It's very hard, wanting to be president. Well, not hard, but it's difficult wanting to be president for 6 campuses, 50,000 students, with one person with so many goals and so that drive and that ambition to want to keep going. So for me, I'm my biggest competitor, but hopefully I beat myself.
So I thought it was very interesting when he said that. It definitely shocked me in that video. But is it shocking to you guys, or do you think he's right? Was he his biggest competitor?
At this point in the race, he is. I mean, we've already said it. He's probably, face value-wise, the best candidate in the debates and as far as running in this race, although he doesn't have the best platform. And that's where he has to shore it up, is kind of shoring up his platform whenever he goes out to campaign from now on until Election Day. Because Anthony is right there behind him. Mm-hmm. And where Anthony lacks in personality, he makes up for in ideas. So right now, all it takes is one slip up for Senator Gray to end up lagging behind this race, and Anthony will take it.
I definitely love his response saying that his biggest competitor was himself, because a lot of the times people compare themselves to other people, and I think that you have to battle yourself in order to be the best person, or in his case, the best candidate that he can be, and not blaming other people for their own success.
Absolutely. Now, when we talked to Breonna Stanley, we kind of talked about her stance as a perimeter student, and she felt that it was both an advantage and a disadvantage. So this is what she had to say.
I feel like it can be a challenge, but as well as it's an advantage, because I have an understanding of both sides, because since the consolidation, we've had to learn both sides, and I feel that when I'm elected, that I can implement that and allow people to basically bridge that gap and understand that there's not very many differences between us, and I feel that that's the problem a lot of the times. Like I said, a lot of perimeter students feel marginalized, and it's sad because, we're all pursuing a degree. We're all paying tuition just because somebody pays a little bit more. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you shouldn't feel a different way.
Okay, so like she said, it was more of both a disadvantage and an advantage, but she still feels like she can push through and hopefully get some people for the Atlanta students. So I know we kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I mean,
although it might be true that she can, try her best to campaign during this season, I think that that's one of the biggest disadvantages that she has, is that she is on the perimeter campus. So, it could work out in her favor, but right now it's not looking too good.
Yeah, and while it can be an advantage to be the outsider sometimes, in an election where, like last year, only 5% of people voted, more than likely that 5% are people that stay in the Atlanta-based campus, and if they don't really know your name, they're not going to vote for you. And it's more of a disadvantage because she just doesn't know what's going on right now. And it's also hard to campaign because you have to travel to get here to campaign and to put out your stuff. Again, people don't know you, so when they see your face on stuff, they don't know you around here. Like, people probably know Senator Gray and Senator Wynn just from seeing them walk around campus, knowing them as friends. They might go out, and party and meet people in classes and things like that. And so it's just really hard to do that, and I commend her for it, but it's an uphill battle from here.
Absolutely. Now, lastly, we're going to go to the last presidential candidate, Anthony Wynn. We talk about his financial aid and academic advisement stance, which I thought was very distinct from the other candidates. So this is what he had to say about where he got that inspiration.
Every single year, in every forum I've read, students are concerned about financial aid. The students are concerned about waiting 5 hours at a time to talk to their financial advisor or trying to pay their bills. We can't have that. So that's one of my that's an issue I know that we can address within 1 year or within one semester. So that's why I want to emphasize on that.
So I thought that his stance was very interesting, considering he knows that many students, especially in Atlanta campus, deal with the long lines every semester. But it was interesting, actually. The moderator, Christina from The Signal, she said that, actually, I'm trying to think the right words, that, it's actually from people not completing their FAFSAs on time that are the main reasons for the lines. So he didn't really have a response to that, but all he could say was, we're pushing them to get it done. And he actually also mentioned that I haven't even got my FAFSA done. So that was actually very interesting, and it kind of made him seem a little like, you know what, you're right, but What do you think about that?
Yeah, and that's just another thing when I said that some of these candidates seem uninformed about what's going on. I know I receive FAFSA emails like as soon as the deadline comes within about 2 or 3 weeks of the deadline. I receive a FAFSA, hey, have you completed your FAFSA yet? I receive one for the next year for 2017, 2018. And that's just another instance of, hey, these things actually do happen, but if you pay attention as a candidate, even as a student, you notice it. Things like that. Another thing Brianna pointed out was that candidate Stanley pointed out was she said that she wanted a type of advisement tool that would allow students to check on where their courses are going and all the way up till the end of your time at the school. Well, we have that. It's in pause. You go to enrollment. It will show an entire course map of what you need to take to get out from areas A through F. So just small things like that. And it's a small call your bluff on it, but in the long run, it just makes you seem uninformed to people that are in the room and to voters that were watching the live stream that night.
Well, I definitely think that financial aid is a huge problem at our campus, Atlanta campus to be specific, but I don't think that that's a really big deal. But I do think that it could be both ways. It could be the really long lines and the advisors taking too long, and it could be also the students who might not be getting that FAFSA in on time. But I do like his platform and what he plans on doing with the financial aid, and I think it's very necessary.
Absolutely. So lastly, the most interesting part of the whole debates, last night, I think, was the current SGA president, Fortune Onwuzurike, was there front and center listening to what the candidates have to say. And safe to say, there were some interesting moments, a little bit of tension at the end of the night. So let's take a look at some of the things that went on.
First and foremost, the first thing I want to address is in the beginning of this whole debate, something was mentioned about Islam protester being arrested. Just to clear that up, she was actually escorted. Everybody can answer this because I have more questions. All right. Next coming up, I'm telling you this live.
You will have to give Anthony a chance to answer that question.
Okay, well.
For time purposes. And if any additional questions, please feel free to meet up with the candidates personally.
I mean, the clip says it for itself. I was very surprised that that happened. It definitely set a different tone for the end of the night. It made everybody feel a little awkward. Like I said, a little bit of tension. I honestly could say I was very surprised and kind of confused of why he acted like that. We do understand that he was there asking questions, kind of as, what he's going through in his current position as the president. He did have more than, he had like about 5 questions, I think, and they had to limit it down because it was towards the end of the night. But I thought that was just very interesting. And, I didn't even hear, but you guys told me when you guys were there that he says, wow, times have changed, little things like that. So what do you think of, it left everybody in an awkward tone, but, what do you think about how did he act as the president and what did it, mean?
Well, I definitely wasn't surprised at this because I think that President Fortune was definitely one of the key components of not all of the issues that happened, but he was the president for this year. So he was definitely front and center as to knowing what's going on and also having that contact with President Becker as far as the CBA concerns go, and I definitely think that he could have stepped up a little bit as a president in order to let the students' voices be heard, and that's what SGA is all about, is having those students voice their concerns. But I wasn't surprised at all, but I do think that he was trying to just hold the candidates accountable. So if they were to become president, he definitely was trying to make sure that he left a legacy and made sure that they would do their part if elected president.
I'm just going to say it. I mean, while you are allowed as a president, he has every right to ask questions because, like Michaela said, these are things that they're going to have to deal with in his position. The way he handled it and his attitude, it was extremely callous, extremely unprofessional, and the way he talked to candidate Wynn, Senator Wynn, and cut him off and tried to take over the debate because he was a president. It was the fact he had the audacity to even try and do that, knowing the debate protocol, and he's been there, is just beyond me. Like, you are the current president, you know how the system works. represent yourself and represent your SGA that you're leaving, even in your last waning moments before you graduate, with some class.
Absolutely. So, final thoughts. We're going to pick out of the vice presidential debate and the presidential debate who were your winners. So we'll start with vice presidential. Between Ty Keecher and Jan Mondun, who do you believe won that debate?
I'm going to go with Jan Mondun for the vice president position.
Okay, Cole.
I'm going to go with Gabriel Ty Keecher, because I just think that his message, I think although Jan is more polished, of course, because he's been there for a while, I think Ty's message was going to resonate with voters more.
Okay. And then for presidential candidates, Anthony, Brianna, or Corey, who was the winner for that?
I'm going to go with Anthony Nguyen. I think that he definitely, although he wasn't as best of a presenter during this debate, I think that his platform really stands out, and he's very active on campus and really had a plan as to what he was going to do. Even though Corey Gray might be a little bit more of a popular candidate, I think that Anthony definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, it was really close for me. The entire time I was kind of going back and forth. I was like, well, he's more polished and stuff, and then, you know, his platform's better. And although Corey's words are very good, very concise, confident, actions speak louder than words. And right now, Anthony's platform looks like his actions are going to speak very clearly and set a better path for SGA. So I'm going to have to go with Anthony for this debate.
Okay, Anthony for the double win. Although it was a very long debate yesterday, I think it went very well. It left on a little bit of an awkward stance with Fortune going on, but I think it was a very good debate. So,
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up the post-debate analysis. I want to thank my correspondents, Cole Gibson and Michaela Newton, for joining me at the desk. The SGA debates hosted by The Signal did not end Tuesday, I would say. The Atlanta Senator Candidates Forum will take place tomorrow, Thursday, March 30th at 7 p.m. and will be located in Urban Life 220. If you are unable to make it, be sure to tune in to The Signal's live stream hosted on YouTube. As for Panther Report, please be sure to check out many stories happening around campus and in the city of Atlanta. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at Panther_report. Once again, I am your host, Brianna Albizu. Thank you for joining me, and see you next year.